let's pivot for a second to what you're doing. And so let's just lay the groundwork. Like, where are you now? What have you been doing the last 30 days? And how has your effort changed since we last spoke?
Thank you. Well, my organization is Early Vote Action. That's earlyvoteaction.com. And since you and I last spoke, we now have a state director, John David Longo, the mayor of Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, the home of Butler, the site of the assassination attempt against our president. He is our state director. And we now have 30 staff across Pennsylvania that are working tirelessly, going to gun shows and farmers markets. And most recently, we were at the Puerto Rican parade in Berks County in Reading, one of the most consequential counties that President Trump must win this November. And so we are adding every single week hundreds of new registered Republicans to the voter registration totals, which we'll receive today on Monday. And so I just got back from my last trip outside of the Commonwealth. I went to Minnesota, and let me tell you, those people are fired up to defeat Stolen Valor Tim Walz. Stolen Valor Tim Walz that shut down the state, and let's be real, put COVID positive patients into nursing homes, killing the very constituents that he was responsible for. And so for the next 57 days, Sean, I am not leaving Pennsylvania. All of my time, all of my energy are going towards winning those 19 electoral college points to deliver Pennsylvania for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I want to get to a bunch of the stuff you said. It was funny that we had two candidates in the last, I think, week from Pennsylvania on the 8th District, Rob Bresnahan and
Yes.
And then Ryan McKenzie. And
Yes.
both of them, I think, brought your name up saying, we need more Scott Presler here. It was like, there's that old Saturday Night Live thing. It's like, we need more cowbell. They were like, we need more Presler. And I think it's funny. I mean, you've kind of become a folk hero. People are like, they want you to ride into town to register their voters, to get people fired up. It's just on a personal level. It's got to have changed a lot from getting kind of, I can't get a meeting, to now everybody wants to meet with you.
It's very humbling. You know, I mean, to be on this show with you, somebody that is so respected, with the president and his inner circle. Thank you for the opportunity to be on Donald Trump.
You're the guy
show.
doing the work, brother. I mean, honestly, I'd rather get the credit that you're getting than sitting and doing a show. You're out there pounding the pavement, bringing people over, and I think that is so critical and it's so crucial. So thank you for what you're doing. I sit in a chair and talk to people. You knock on doors, get them to take an action that will be decisive in the outcome of an election. I mean, I don't mean it. Bottom line is that is much more impactful. And I appreciate that. And that's why I love having you on, because you're a doer.
Thank you. Well, and Sean, you mentioned Bresnahan and McKenzie, and I want to be clear to anybody in Pennsylvania or anybody across the country that wants to ensure that President Trump has a Senate and has a House when we elect him back into the White House, we must support Dave McCormick for the United States Senate. So when you vote for Donald Trump, you vote top to bottom. You vote for Dave McCormick. If you're in the 8th Congressional District, you vote for Bresnahan to defeat Democrat Biden-Kamala supporter Matt Cartwright. And I need your vote also for McKenzie to defeat Democrat Biden-Kamala Harris supporter Susan Wild. Those areas of Wayne, Pike, Luzerne, Lackawanna, Berks, Allentown, and Lehigh, I need every single one of you to make sure that we are giving Donald Trump a Congress that he can legislate when we inaugurate him on January 20th, 2025.
In your mind, it all comes down to Pennsylvania, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm convinced that. So let me ask you this question, because I asked both McKenzie and Bresnahan this question. If you're me or anyone that watches this show on election night and you want to know, I mean, if we just, as the predicate, assume that Pennsylvania, so goes the White House, where do we want to look in Pennsylvania to know how it's going to happen?
Well, a couple different metrics. We win 25% of Philadelphia. We win Pennsylvania. We win the White House. That's it. And
now, Pennsylvania, Philly or Philly and the suburbs, like what is that thing that we should be looking at on election.
Philadelphia, if you see our margins, Sean, going upwards of 20% entirely in Philadelphia County, 20% for Donald Trump, we are going to have a very good night in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
All right.
If you see 40% of Allegheny County, Pittsburgh, but I mean, you got Moon Township, Cranberry, all of those adjacent places. If you see 40% for Donald Trump coming in the election, it's ours. If you see us flip Erie County from blue to red, it's ours. There are so many pathways to victory within Pennsylvania. And with my organization, earlyvoteaction.com, we are focusing on all 67. Yes, it's to make sure that we're stopping the bleeding in the blue counties, but we are upping the rurals. And one important data point that I think is interesting is Wayne County, Pennsylvania. It's just north on the border of New York above Pike and Milford. We have actually requested as Republicans more mail-in ballots than the Democrats in a very rural county. That is showing me that Republicans are finally getting on board with early voting. And if we can up those rurals 1,000 more votes per county, Donald Trump will win this election.
Okay. All right. Okay. So give me an idea of historically, where do we stand registration wise? I mean, you pick the metric, but I'm thinking maybe 2016 or 2020 versus now. Like, what is it where have we come from?
Let's start with 2016. So when Donald Trump was elected with 40,000, which is nothing,
right.
more votes in 2016 in Pennsylvania, there were more than 900,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans.
So almost a million.
Almost a million. Almost a million, and Donald Trump still won. And I know that number sounds daunting, but it shows you it can be done. So let's fast forward to 2020, when there were 650,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans. And I use this word loosely, save the tomatoes at home, but Joe Biden won the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania by 80,000 votes. Now, I'll remind people that was with the legislature not consenting to mail-in ballots. You had everything in the kitchen sink thrown at President Trump. Right. And that state in 2020 was decided by 80,000 votes. Now, what has changed since 2020? And by the way, I think it's important to point out that Dr. Jill Stein, Green Party, was on the ballot in 2016. She was not on the ballot.
That's so critical. I've been saying this for a while. The third party matters. And it's not just the third party. Jill Stein in particular, this was the case in Michigan, and I'm glad you brought it up. The difference in so many cases in 2020 was that the Green Party didn't have a serious candidate. It wasn't robust as it was in 2016. And you're making that point now about 2024.
Yes. And so the Democrat Supreme Court of Pennsylvania kicked the Green Party off the ballot in 2020. So now what has changed now in 2024 to the audience at home? Well, that 900,000 number has been reduced to 350,000. We're getting the new data today, so I'll be able to report fresh data momentarily. So 350. Now, that's active plus inactive voters. And so an inactive voter, if they show up at the polls on election day, they can still vote. But if you take out inactive voters, that number, Sean, is 170,000. Just D's over R's. That shows me the metrics, the voter registration data says Pennsylvania is in play. And I must also point out two last things. Dr. Jill Stein is on the ballot in 2024 in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in North Carolina, in Nevada, in Arizona, in all of the swing states. And last, this is very critical, last thing, the Democrats' mail-in ballot requests are down 30% in Philadelphia County, are down 30% in Allegheny County, and are down over 100,000 fewer now than they were 4 years at the same point in time.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.